Okay, hi everyone. My name is Jessica Keene with ICUDDR, and today I will be co-presenting with, co-moderating with the lovely Carrie Hopkins-Giles. And I just want to welcome all of you to our session today, as well as express my gratitude to our esteemed presenters. And they include Roger Peters, Carrie Hopkins-Giles, Xavier Ferrer, and Igor Koutsenok. And as you will see when you enter the session, your computer will be set to mute today. And we ask that you please keep this on until we adjourn to the breakout and discussion part of the session, where there will be time for you to ask your questions and voice your opinions and experiences. The structure for our session today will be as follows. First, we will have a panel presentation, and then we will have a breakout and discussion about the topic presented. During this time, you can share the work you have done on this in your region or university and discuss challenges and questions that you may have. We will then return to a large group to discuss what was raised in small groups, including what we can all do as ICUDDR members to move this important work forward. Next, I want to tell you a little bit about our presenters today. So first, we have Roger Peters. And Dr. Peters is a licensed clinical psychologist and a professor in the Department of Mental Health Law and Policy at the University of South Florida in Tampa, Florida. He serves as the director of the Universal Treatment Curriculum Coordinating Center for North American Universities and as the vice president of the International Consortium of Universities for Drug Demand Reduction, ICUDDR. Dr. Peters received 2 Fulbright specialist grants for projects in Ghana and Paraguay and has received multiple grants, including a NIDA P30 Research Course Center. He currently serves on the Florida Supreme Court Steering Committee on Problem-Solving Courts and has been a faculty member of the National Judicial College since 2014. Co-presenting with Dr. Peters today, we have Carrie Hopkins-Giles. Carrie has a master's degree in criminology and is a certified addictions professional. She teaches at a university in Florida and is the deputy director for our host, ICUDDR. She has been in the addictions field as a clinician, trainer, and administrator for 18 years. Following them, we have Xavier Ferrer. He is a psychology doctor. He's linked to organizing training for postgraduates on drug demand reduction since 1978. And since 1986, he has been a member of the board of the Master on Addictions at the University of Barcelona, where he is now director. The specialty program also includes other minor courses. He is linked to practice through the direction of the Fundación Salud y Comunidad. I don't speak Spanish, sorry if I butchered that pronunciation. A Spanish NGO running more than 130 centers and programs, including 37 on addictions, dealing with outpatient care, therapeutic communities, harm reduction, safe injection rooms, prevention in the school, family, prisons, and other topics. And last but not least today, we have Igor Koutsenok. He is a professor of psychiatry at the University of California, San Diego Department of Psychiatry. He is the director of the Center for Criminality and Addiction Research, Training, and Application. He's the director of the International Addiction Technology Transfer Center in the Ukraine. He's also the co-director, International Addiction Technology Transfer Center, Southeast Asia, and he also serves as vice president for us here at ICUDDR. And without further ado, I now turn it over to Roger Peters and Carrie Hopkins-Giles for the first presentation.
Great. Is my audio picking up?
Yes.
Fantastic. I can't see the slides. Are they pictured on the screen?
Yes, Carrie is sharing the slides.
Okay, great. Welcome. It's good to be here today. And thank you for joining us today for the final day of the ICUDDR conference. We have a great group of panelists and participants as well, a lot of talent in the group today, and look forward to the breakout sessions as well as the panel discussions. So I'd like to start out with the session today is on skills-based learning, and I think it's going to be a really good opportunity to share information from different types of perspectives about how we can share information about and practice skills with our addiction practitioners, which is really key. So let me start out the program. I'll be working with Carrie Hopkins-Giles. I'm going to start with giving you a little overview of a recent project that's sponsored by the U.S. Department of State and the Colombo Plan is focused on a mentorship curriculum related to the Universal Treatment Curriculum, basic level. And I think most of you are familiar with the Universal Treatment Curriculum that was developed through funding by the U.S. Department of State and coordinated by the Colombo Plan. Training's been provided with the UTC in over 60 countries around the world. And there's a basic level curriculum and also advanced level curriculum for the UTC, as well as a separate universal prevention curriculum. And so the UTC curriculum was really developed for didactic classroom training using an experiential adult learning model. However, with a large classroom setting, I believe everyone understands that you can't go through a training like that, even though it's very extensive, and learn all the skills and be able to hone and refine those skills in a meaningful way. And so we all understand that there is a need for advanced coaching, supervision, development of these skills. And to promote that, we have begun to develop a mentorship curriculum that corresponds to the basic level UTC courses. And there are currently 8 of those basic level courses. So this past year, we have developed a set of mentorship courses that correspond to each of the basic level UTC courses. The goal is of the mentorship curriculum is to promote sustainability of the UTC knowledge and skills beyond the initial classroom training provided through the Colombo Plan and didactic training. So as we spoke before, the adult learning research indicates that we need to have ongoing mentorship, coaching, supervision to sustain and refine skills. So the mentorship activities we'll be describing today are needed following completion of each of the UTC basic level courses to actually refine and practice, rehearse, and gain a little bit better traction on the skills that are introduced in the UTC basic level curriculum, if that makes sense. So one practical consideration that we need to think about is that mentorship for the group of people who are taking and have gone through the UTC basic level curriculum needs to be a virtual kind of platform in which we bring together people from different areas, regions, countries even, to provide mentorship facilitation. So let's go to the next slide. And I just want to mention the partners in the creation of the UTC mentorship curriculum. And we have, of course, the U.S. Department of State, Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, INL. We have the Colombo Plan Drug Advisory Program based in Sri Lanka. The International Society of Substance Use Professionals, ICUDDR, based in the UK. And Carrie Hopkins-Isles will be talking more about that particular partnership. The UTC Coordinating Center for North American Universities at the University of South Florida, where I work. And then, of course, the International Consortium of Universities for Drug Reduction and our advisory committee for the mentorship curriculum, which include Dr. Andre Jones and Dr. Lori Crom. And many of you are familiar with their work. So to the next slide. And I'd like to just give you an overview of the mentorship courses, the structure and format. And to begin with, the mentorship courses, as I mentioned, correspond to each of the basic level UTC courses. And what we've done is to develop both a trainer and a participant manual for each of the mentorship courses. We'll talk about the organization and give you some examples, actually, that Carrie will be describing of what's inside one of the courses. But the courses are designed to look at particular competencies related to addiction treatment. And within those competencies, we've gone through the basic level UTC courses and identified core prioritized skills that we believe are most essential to that particular competency area. What we've then done is to develop modules related to each of those skills and provided a 2-week set of experiences for individuals involved in the mentorship training to develop, refine, practice those skills. So if you look at the middle section of the graph in red, you'll notice that there are 3 components of each of the mentorship course skill modules. So again, each of the modules pertains to a separate type of skill that we've prioritized based on a review of the basic level UTC course. So the first part of each of these skill modules is the didactic review. What is the kind of basic learning that went on during the UTC course? What do we need to review? What are the important components of that? A second part is having people go to their treatment site where they work, where they meet with clients and patients, and actually practice exercises, review videos, review case studies, talk with colleagues, and actually working with their clients to practice the skills in person. We feel that's a vitally important component, and one, as you can imagine, is really impossible to do in a UTC basic level course in a classroom setting. And so here we're beginning to rehearse the skills that are introduced in the didactic review part of each of the skill modules. The final part and final component of the mentorship skill modules is a 2-hour facilitated group mentorship session that's conducted via WebEx. And this involves a relatively small group of individuals. As you know, to be able to practice and rehearse skills, you can't have a group of 30 or 40 people to do this because you just don't have time for each person to do role play and practice the skills and so forth. And so Carrie Hopkins-Isles is going to describe a little bit later the pilot training and what that involves, but we have a group of 12 participants in that, and she'll talk a little bit about what the facilitated group mentorship sessions actually involve. So to wrap up, I'd like to turn the program over to Carrie Hopkins-Isles to describe in more detail the mentorship curriculum and the mentorship training process. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Roger. I appreciate that. So as Roger said, we have competencies that we think critical for this course because we want to move away from the concept and into really what you can do with it. So here's an example of a competency: effective use of MET with clients, using techniques which align with their stage of change. And we actually just worked on this. I see some of my students are here today, some of my mentees in my amazing first group. And so we talked about, we took it to a real level. We had each of the students talk about clients that they work with or have worked with, and they talked about what do they think their stage of change is, what do they think that, and then what would be the appropriate intervention based on that. I'll talk about that a little more. So an example of the skill underneath that competency would be providing reflective listening in individual and group treatment settings. So we've spent time, what does it look like to really listen, using your body language, using immediacy, making sure you're really there with them, providing summaries, summarizing back to them, things of that nature. So we have, as Roger said, on practice, we had listening handout that students used that we created, and they did those different examples and then came back to us as in our group and we practiced. So here's an example. If the client says, I don't need to be in treatment, a lot of people use more than I do, how would you respond? My wife forced me to come here, etc. So you can see we use real life examples, and then the clinician has to think about how would they respond to that. And we do some of that practice in when we come back to our sessions. So at this point, this is the preparation and on-site practice that the students do to be prepared for our facilitated group session. Another example is for them to watch a video, build your active listening skills with reflective statements so they can watch a practice and then be prepared to discuss it in the next group session with us. and practice reflective listening. So they would practice it in their individual counseling and in their group sessions, and record one example of reflective listening in group and individual sessions on a log. So we know that this is a lot of work, and we're asking a lot of our folks in the course, and they would tell you the same, I imagine. However, we did try to make it things that they'll already be working on, like presumably they'll already be in individual counseling sessions and group sessions, and this is a honing of those skills. Here is that reflective listening log that was referred to a moment ago. So we've created everything that they need to do this on-site practice and preparation. So then when we come back to our groups, our every 2 week group that Roger mentioned, then we practice, we go over all the things we did so that all of the work is for a good reason. So we review the reflective listening skills handout, share examples of reflecting listening, and of course, every single competency and every single skill, they're going to have their own preparation and on-site practice, and we're going to have a different end result in our facilitated group mentorship session. So what are some of the infrastructure needs for this particular course? We have it's not your traditional web-based learning management system, but what we've been lucky enough to do is partner with ICUDDR and use one of their forums as our sort of learning management system and our home base. So I have a screenshot here you can see where people can log their homework or their, we call it skill building practice. That's one of the tabs there. We have videos, like every session is recorded and placed on here afterwards so people can go back to it. The course manual is available. It's broken up into skill modules, so they can just go to the skill module we're working on for that 2 week period. They can post questions, and we also have an extensive number of resources for each of the skills. Obviously, you need trainers and facilitators who are comfortable with not just training and not just being a clinician, but you have to be comfortable with what I've learned is you have to be comfortable with challenging questions, examples. You know, my students will ask me, like, yeah, that's a great skill, but I've tried this and I've tried that. What do we do next? You have to be comfortable with being able to manage the group, the technology. So there's a lot of challenges. And we had the discussion yesterday about the online learning. So you have to have some comfortability with that, at least in the way we're doing it. Computer access, other resources that make you able to provide this. So that may be that you have good enough bandwidth, obviously the time to prepare. So there's a lot of things that you need to make this work. So I've really been honored to be part of the pilot training session, and we're doing basic counseling skills for addiction professionals. It's been 7 skill modules, 2 weeks for each module. So just to make that really clear in a real example, each skill module, it has the competency, that higher level competency or goal. Then there's a skill module, and for 2 weeks, that's what the students work on. So they, on their own, they look at the quick review of the didactic, they practice, they do the practice and preparation of the skill module, and then we meet for about 2 hours, and I'm going to give you some examples of what we've done and what feedback we've received for that. We have an amazing group from Africa, Central and South America, and as Roger said, everyone in our group has probably 10 years of experience. The idea being from a sustainability model that these folks could be future mentors. So they're learning, they're seeing how the course goes from working with me, but then they may end up doing this, so exponentially we'll have more people to do it moving forward. This was our orientation session. You can see some familiar faces here. Some of you might see yourself. These are some of our awesome sponsors and support from ISUP, from INL, from Colombo Plan, as well as a number of our students. And as we know, group pictures are a little different these days. So here are some of the things that we have found so far. The sessions have been really interactive. I can certainly talk for 2 hours, but that's never been the goal. And thankfully, it's never been what's been required of me. So people are really participating. They're asking good questions. They're willing to engage. And one of the very first sessions we had, we talked about sort of what makes you a good counselor, but also what are some of your weaknesses. And these folks really were very vulnerable and shared things that I was really proud of them right off the bat, and I think bonded us as a group. Good compliance, so everybody is practicing, they're doing the assignments, they're either posting them on the ISUP forum that I showed earlier, or they're bringing them to class, and they just really, you can tell that they're engaged and really want to improve. We have the sessions recorded and posted, so that's nice for people who miss something, or if they have technical difficulties, so part of it kind of, you know, they aren't able to participate or hear part of the session, they can go back and review that. Of course, we've had technical difficulties similar to with the conference preparation where we moved from Zoom to WebEx. And I mean, even myself, I'm very fortunate to have good bandwidth and be in a resource-rich country, but I've had times where I had issues with my audio. People obviously have times when they're having difficulties with video or audio, so you have to sort of handle that with grace and do the best you can with it. We do a quick evaluation every single session, and I'm going to give you some of that feedback. So we try to really, right after the session, send a quick survey, short and sweet, so that we get an idea of what is going well and what we can improve upon. So as we have been talking about, it's a pilot. So the courses will be revised after the pilot with that feedback, as well as the TEAG group review by UNODC and Colombo Plan. So here's one of our facilitated group sessions. Again, some of you may recognize yourself here. Everybody's really engaged and it's been amazing. So I want to give you a little bit of the specific feedback that I've received so far for this course. I think it's really been exciting to see how people are perceiving it. One, this was asking them what was most helpful to you in the session. So someone said learning how to summarize what was discussed and also reflection. Let me explain. In this case, we did a role play, and what I did was I asked one of our students to just be like the most difficult client they could possibly be. And my goal as the counselor was to roll with resistance. So they gave the feedback, a lot of people gave the feedback that the role playing of rolling with resistance was most helpful. And this comment was, I learned a lot because in the past I would have given up on resistant clients, but with the role play, I now fully understood how to roll with resistance. I intend to practice it more often to sharpen my skills because that has been my weakest area. And if I can just step back for a moment and say, as a mentor and as a teacher and trainer, that is incredibly powerful feedback. That made me just really so excited and inspired, and the idea that someone would have sort of given up, but now they're going to use this skill is amazing to me. Also, rehearsing the elaboration of open-ended questions. I thought this was a really powerful feedback that could have been easily ignored, but that what was most helpful to them was attempting the assignment on their own. I think sometimes we probably think, oh, we're just giving them this homework and maybe they're doing it or maybe they're not, but at least one of the students said that was the most helpful to them. And then finally, the trainer's feedback and the group interaction, sharing their experiences, listening to my colleagues. I love the methodology of the training. So this is some of the feedback so far. Of course, we've received feedback on things that aren't, that don't work as well. Typically, a lot of that is technology, but whatever feedback we receive, we want to use that to improve. And that is my part and Roger's part. So thank you both. And I think Xavier is next. I'm looking forward to the discussion in the breakout room.
Sigue nuestro siguiente participante.
Pues ahora tengo que cerrar la traducción o esto va a ser un desastre. Ay, que no sé si he cerrado. ¡Ah! No he sortit, quina por. Okay. Let me check, mute, I think.
We can hear you, Xavier.
Cannot hear.
Do you need any help?
No, I think now it's working. Hi, it's now my... Hi, may you hear me? Yes? Good.
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I was afraid of a computer crash, but it didn't happen. Okay, so let me try to share my screen. One moment, please. Sorry, something I'm not doing properly. I think now it will work. Share file, share application, PowerPoint. Okay. You should see a PowerPoint presentation in some seconds, hopefully. Okay, I don't know why it's starting here. Let's go back. Okay. Is it okay? Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you and see your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so thank you very much for inviting us to present about our thoughts on how to learn professional skills through distance methods. I will try to summarize our experience till this moment at the postgraduate training program on addictions at the University of Barcelona. Just to tell you that when confronting this COVID-19 pandemic, everything was going wrong. So we were forced in very short time to try to think on the future, how to reorganize a face-to-face course into possibly a much more online one. So we had a task force team made up of members of our staff and also a group of students who volunteered to participate, and some of them I would like very much to thank them and to welcome them because they are also attending this session. You can see part of our students are from Spain, others are coming to Barcelona from countries like Romania, Chile, or the Dominican Republic, and are also from different professions: social work, psychology, social education, nursing, and so on. Then, just as a framework, the University of Barcelona Specialized Teaching on Addictions started since 1978 through some seminars. We set up this master multidisciplinary since 1986-87. Later on, we had some shorter courses, like we call expert to courses. Master is estimated to have like 2,000 hours training, and shorter courses like, say, 250, okay? But we had always face-to-face teaching, except for an online version of our master. But I would say it's a quite traditional online version from the year 2000 onwards. That's a shorter course. It's only 60 credits, European credits. The face-to-face course is 82, and the format is sending PDF files to the students. They can read at the moment they want. They can participate in a chat, in forums, see videos, and have email contact with a tutor. But there is no practice in real settings. I mean, neither stages nor practical exercises in real or simulated situations are held. and there is no synchronicity. I mean, students can read, can write at different hours, different days. This has some advantages, also an inconvenience. Summing up, we gave always priority to face-to-face learning, which is always still considered by our university the best option, not the only option, but the best option. Then, as I was telling you, with COVID-19, it was a sudden change, it was an interruption of the learning process. We were prohibited, students were prohibited to attend the practical learning in the therapeutic centers or the prevention services. Both students or teachers were confined, were into a lockdown for months. This is going a threat, obviously, to health, economy, and to the quality of the university learning. But threats always bring to us opportunities and facilitate to reflect and to rethink the learning process. The adaptation process, summing up very quickly, in 2 weeks we have to think, to check different options, platforms, to test them. And finally, we selected the synchronous video conferencing lessons as the primary, as the main teaching method. These lessons are also recorded to facilitate access for those who are unable to attend, because, for instance, some students have been employed, have been working in emergency services related to the pandemic, for instance, working in, I would say, in some kinds of facilities for the homeless, many of them having also alcohol or other drug problems. Well, the master thesis tutoring continued online, the master thesis public presentations were made online, but here is coming the main problem, the main drawback. The skills training through space centers has been interrupted and until now has not been resumed. We were able to keep the online skills training through simulated situations, through role playing, a little bit on the way that was were describing Kerry and Roger Peters before. But I would say our main system for qualified students were most having them in real situations, in therapeutic centers, in harm reduction facilities, in hospitals, in therapeutic communities. This was not anymore. Has not been any more possible. Okay, so what happened when we went into this new situation of having video conferencing? Well, by our surprise, the result has not been bad, because if you say the average satisfaction of our students with the module number 3, module number 3 is like 20 lessons, 4 hours each, okay? Many trainers are participating. And the average, if you see here, the average in this year, one moment, has been in this scale ranging 0 to 10, has been even better than in previous years. We cannot know, maybe these students are grateful because they saw the big effort being made by the teaching staff to change everything in a quick way. So the students are not the same, so the comparison is not possible, but at least it was not the disaster we were afraid of. You see here the qualification of the quality of the contents delivered, the learning methods used, and the standard deviation means that the scores given by the group are, say, more narrow, are more close. Okay, so confronting the uncertainty, as most of you are as well, probably. The theoretical learning, that is the transmission of knowledge, we consider it well solved through the video conference lessons, combined with some complementary methods, like, of course, reading bibliography, like participating in group work, assigning homework, etc. But the challenge still is the acquisition and learning of professional skills in real situations. Well, if we concentrate in the field of drug treatment, the students, what do they need to know as skills I would say, how to do, savoir-faire, saber-hacer, and how to be there. So the savoir-être, no? Saber estar. Attitudes and interactions, which kind of attitudes they have to show, which kind of interactions they have to establish with the clients. And certainly we expect that our students must be able to adapt to different environments and situations. In our previous usual training in the face-to-face format, which kind of skills were we training? Okay, we can think on the skills on different ways. This is one of them. Skills for the counseling, for reception of new demands from patients or relatives, think on diagnosis, multidimensional evaluation, designing an individual treatment plan, comorbidity, and on individual therapy, on pharmacological therapy, on group therapy, on family therapy, interventions on the field of social work, social education, accompaniments and interventions in different activities or situations, say labor integration, occupational therapy, restructuring social relations, and also conducted with active drug users in the streets and drug user scenes, building confidence, harm reduction, emergencies. So a lot of things, you know, and these, for instance, say ability for diagnosis or for individual therapy, you may perform it. You can use these skills in different settings, like in an outpatient facility, in a therapeutic community, in a hospital, in a prison, or some of them even in a supervised consumption room. Of course, you can also think on skills otherwise. You can think on cross skills. Some skills are transversal, are going across all these abilities we were commenting upon. So, for instance, these skills may be observation, communication, speaking in public, empathy, teamwork, planning, active listening. Learning this has been mostly promoted by the accompaniment of one or more qualified professionals in their usual workplaces. This is our usual method. We have, like, say, 50 to 60 trainers. They are working at their usual workplace. We call in Spanish tutor. I think tutor is also English. I don't know if it's very good, but so can be understood. Then the idea is this professional is in charge of a student for usually we have like 500 hours training divided into 2 years, and this professional is responsible for teaching all kinds of abilities to stimulate that certainly in real situations with real patients. Sorry. But the current situation is our students are considered as a possible infectious vector towards vulnerable groups. They are also, seen from the university perspective, considered they are confronting a possible health risk when attending centers with many people, many patients. So stations at centers at this moment are very limited and difficult. So we have, in this situation, we have to experiment, we have to think, we have to try to practice to learn. Okay, the skills learning process, how we do it. First is just plain observation. Second one is participative observation, so the student can also interact and can intervene, can speak, can ask. The third level is the student is acting, but with a synchronous supervision. I mean, the tutor is there and is well, I would say, is also intervening if needed. And the fourth step is the action with delayed supervision. I mean, for instance, you are given the responsibility of a patient, and after the session, or after 3 days, on each week, you are reporting to the tutor who is correcting, who is telling how this is done, who is helping you to think on how has been done and how to do it better in the future. Well, in principle, all these actions are possible online, but this is easier in that we can call sitting down interventions. If you are sitting down, say patient therapist, say therapist, family, a group therapy, but it's much more difficult in field interventions. say in harm reduction, if you're working in the street, in outreach work on community. Then, what are we thinking going to our proposal for the future? We don't know at this moment in my city, in Barcelona. We are thinking if we are going to confront a new lockdown in some days. I hope no. But at this moment, the situation is, well, we have certain increase in new cases, so we are certainly fearing this. We will see. For the moment, we will think on different scenarios. One of them is to have a hybrid approach to this hands-on skills learning, to this practical learning. So combining face-to-face and online delivery. And the methods can be combined in different ways in different situations. So let's present some examples of the methods we're proposing. And so to propose them, we took the worst possible scenario. The idea where only online training is possible because students cannot go to the centers, to the therapeutic centers. So we prepared some very short, so 30-second simulations of different situations for learning training at a distance. So just to tell you, I would say two of the videos are real, with real patients. The others are simulated by our students. So obviously we will not work in English, for instance. So here you will see one situation which is all participants online. We have the patient, we have the tutor, and we have the students, all of them online. In practice, this has been happening really, because many therapeutic sessions, because either the patient or the patient or the professional cannot go to the center, so they agree to continue with the therapy sessions online. Okay, why not to have as well the student online? So let's see. Very sorry. Oh, I did it. Sorry, it was my mistake. It will be corrected in some seconds. I think it's here. Here is okay.
I'm really concerned because you have a relevant problem in your self-esteem. And Diana, as you know, she's working with us and a student in university. She will can make an appointment with you and just set up this evaluation, and this will help us to work on this. So, what do you think? Do you agree with that? It will help?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't feel well since the beginning of the confinement, so I need your help, Jaume. So I agree.
Okay, just here you see the therapist is introducing the student. Well, the student, they already know the student, and proposing that this student will take care of administering a test. This is the self-esteem Rosenberg test. Then here, here you can see, for instance, in this case, the student and the patient are alone online. Later on, the session can be recorded, and the tutor can monitor how the student was working. Okay, and here it is important to consider the environment, physical and social environment, for instance, of the patient. For instance, is the patient free to speak? Is there someone else from the family around? Is there a good communication, a good audio, a good a good video? For instance, here, let us check.
Hello.
Okay, here.
Hello, John. How are you?
Hi, Diana. Fine.
Okay, so we are keep going with the question, yeah?
Let's go.
Okay, so I feel that I have a number of good qualities. What do you think you can answer to this one?
I disagree.
Are you sure about it? Yeah?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Okay, then this is a much more traditional. You have here a therapist and the patient in the office, but you have the student online because the student has not been allowed to participate. Okay, to attend. Up.
How are you doing these days with the time? Okay, I feel like I am in a cage, but in general,
Hi, Jim. How have the relation with your family have been those days?
I'm just starting to see them in person, but I miss them a lot. It was very strange.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, then imagine, for instance, this is a social integration apartment. Here, as one of our students was acting as co-therapist, helping the main therapist, the tutor, to lead the group. Okay, so she was forbidden to continue going, and this is a real situation in this case. Okay, so you then to go ahead. This is then imagine this is the team session. That's a team session where usually the student does participate to think on the diagnosis and to set up a therapeutic plan. But here in this case we have 3 professionals in the center. But we have both the student and one other of the members of the team who are online. Sorry, my problems of handling.
The case of Pedro, it has relapsed 3 times. The best option is to propose chemotherapy, probably a method of maintenance program. What do you think?
Agree.
Agree. I think, Diana, you were interviewing the family. Do you think the family will accept it?
I think they will agree. Yes.
Okay. Garda, what do you think?
I think at this moment, this is the best option for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, then we also carry out some visits to very different centers, occupational workshops, prisons, daycare centers, therapeutic communities, safer injection rooms. So these visits we thought can be substituted somehow by some kind of recorded presentations, and after that have a video forum with a presenter to discuss about how this center is working.
Aquí en el centro de día vamos a realizar terapia ocupacional. Las personas que vienen al centro son personas que están haciendo tratamiento, pues vienen a diario al centro de día y realizan terapia ocupacional. Utilizamos la madera, la marquetería manual en madera, como vehículo para trabajar distintos aspectos relacionados directamente con el tratamiento.
Okay, and then approaching the end, see, also we thought on the possibility, you know, with a camera style GoPro, of say having a streaming transmission, seeing what's happening there along some hours, and then discussing why the occupational therapist was doing that or not. But we are thinking that's really too long transmission. We think it's better maybe to accept selected interventions of the therapist and commenting them later. Okay, so this is here you have the patients and the therapist in the center and the student online. In this case, so later on you have to accept the situation, see how the therapist is working to enhance, for instance, the self-esteem in the case of these patients. This is a real situation, okay? That's not simulated. Okay, then approaching the end, important final considerations. If we have to go into the cyberspace, internet signal quality is paramount importance. The webcam quality, the location in the room of the camera, the person, the group, to have a good sound quality, the microphone, the reverberation of the room, the ambient noise. People will need a previous training for the proper use of technologies of information and communication, and has to know how to optimize the available technological resources. Using virtual reality, yes, but it's difficult because situations are very complex. Simulate therapeutic interventions, it's much easier on some aspects of, say, medicine that in psychology or psychiatry, when you have to go to with feelings, with too many variables, that to have a kind of virtual reality program. Maybe for some harm reduction interventions like feelings of change, or to experience different facilities and interventions. Well, we wanted to share with you our exploration until now. We also expect to learn a lot from you and from your suggestions. Just to close, we would like to have a final thought in memoriam of one of our professors, Francisco Rábago, who died during this COVID-19 pandemic, as well to acknowledge other faculty members and students, as well as their friends who have been suffering this unexpected and terrible disease. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sorry to hear about your colleague. That's terrible.
Thanks.
Okay.
He has been the deputy director of the National Plan of Drugs of Spain. So it's really very, very unfortunate. But it's Madrid especially was very, very affected by the pandemic.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Okay, do you hear me and do you see my slides?
Hear
yes.
you.
Okay.
Do you see the slides, Jessica? So far my screen is black.
Yes, I see the slides.
Good afternoon, good evening, wherever, I don't know where are you participants in what part of the world are you right now, but it's really good you're here and I hope you're safe. So actually Roger, Kerry, and Javier made my life and my presentation much easier because they actually laid the ground, the foundation for what I wanted to say. We all appreciate the fact that this pandemic will stay for a while. So we need to adjust ourselves because it's unlikely that the virus will adopt to us. So we have to adapt to the situation. And in terms of the teaching and building competencies in our students, every colleague before me, we actually said the same. We are struggling with the necessity to use online platform and online format in our teaching. Some of the subjects, what Javier called it theoretical learning, things like, the brain neurophysiology, you can explain the serotonin pathway online relatively easily. But there are very practical skills, clinical skills, that in my mind, before I started doing that, I thought it's impossible to use online to build clinical skills, pragmatic clinical skills. And then when we started doing that, and I was forced to be creative and to learn some strategies, what can be done to assist people in building clinical practical skills. So apparently I realized that I was totally wrong. And it's actually possible, and I will do it with you in the next 5-6 minutes, just to show you one of the many examples how you can build clinical skills using online platforms. I'm talking about the clinical skill of listening. Listening is, in general, the essential skill in any type of counseling, in any type of addiction treatment or behavioral treatment. Because frankly, we are not very good at listening, folks. we are very good at talking. It takes only 2 years for a human being to start talking and the rest of the life to stop and start listening. And building listening skills in general is a critically important for any kind of counseling. Using the example that Carrie gave, the motivational enhancement therapy and motivational interviewing, we are not just listening for the sake of listening. This is important by itself. But we are listening in a very selective and specific way. And that's why I choose this example. Motivational interviewing as a strategy, as a counseling style, is actually the material that MI works with is the ambivalence, the hesitation, should I or I should not. And the ambivalence is normal. When we listen to our clients, one of the skills in selective listening is to differentiate and select very specifically and selectively, listen very selectively to 2 different types of statements. And these 2 different types of statements, we call them change talk and sustain talk. I'm just reminding you, I'm sure you know of all of these things. I'm just reminding you because this will be relevant to the exercise that we'll be doing. So change talk is everything that the person says in favor of moving toward behavioral change. Sustain talk is everything that the person says in favor of keeping it as is, keeping the status quo, don't change anything. These are the verbal expressions of the ambivalence, the hesitation, should I or I should not. In motivational enhancement therapy and motivational interviewing, one of the critically important skills is to separate, to listen carefully to both parts, to both statements, change and sustain talk. But the directiveness of MI is based on our ability to select the change talk only and to respond to change talk only. So in other words, this is our clinical skill, practical clinical skill, to pay attention to everything that the person says, but to respond only to the change talk. Why? Because I want more of it. Why do I want more of it? Because we know it for the last 50, 60 years from multiple studies that the more the client is talking about the potential of change, the more likely the change will happen, and vice versa. The more me as a counselor is trying to persuade the client to change, it will automatically make the change less likely to happen. Actually, we will build a lot of defensiveness and resistance. This is why it's so important for me to train myself, to listen very carefully to everything that the person says, and to separate change talk from sustain talk and to reinforce the change talk only, meaning this is the only part of the statement that I will be responding to. Now, we will do a little bit of practice.
As this provider becomes more and more.
Here is what the practice will be. You will see a short video clip, it's a 3.5 minutes video clip, and you will watch it twice. First, I want you to see an interaction between a physician and a patient on the issue of tobacco smoking. Just pay attention to the conversation, pay attention to what the physician is doing, what kind of skills the physician is using. And then, when we watched it once, we will do it again, and I will tell you what to do with me the second time. So let's watch first.
So I wrote a prescription for antibiotics for Aiden. I did want to talk to you, though. I'm a little bit concerned looking through his chart at how many ear infections he's had recently. And I noticed that you had checked the box that someone's smoking in the home. So I was wondering if you can tell me a little more about that.
Well, it's just me and him, and I do smoke. I try really hard not to smoke around him. But I've been smoking for 10 years, except when I was pregnant with him. But it's so stressful being a single mom and having a full-time job. And so it's just, that's why I started smoking again.
You have a lot of things going on, and smoking's kind of a way to relax and de-stress.
Yes, yeah. Some people have a glass of wine, I have a cigarette.
Sure. And it sounds like you're trying not to smoke around him. Why did you make that decision?
I know it's not good for him. I mean, I've read those things about ear infections and asthma and stuff, but other kids have ear infections and their parents don't smoke.
So on the one hand, you're worried about how your smoking might be affecting him, and on the other hand, you're not so sure if it's really the smoking that's causing these problems.
Right, yeah. I mean, he doesn't have asthma. Yeah, he hasn't had a lot of other problems that his other friends have. So, and I've thought about quitting before in the past, but I just don't see how it's possible right now.
What made you decide to quit smoking when you were pregnant?
Well, he was inside me, and we were sharing everything, and I knew that he would get some of that, and I just didn't think I could live with myself if something happened to him.
Right now, it feels almost too difficult to even manage or even to try.
Yeah, exactly.
How were you successful when you quit before?
I don't know. I think about it now. I don't even know how I did it. I just did it. You know, I just couldn't imagine like him not being born or going into labor early and him having problems and stuff like that. All the stuff that they talk about with women who smoke. So that was just enough to say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to risk that.
Mm-hmm.
So
the risks were so scary then that you were able to stop, but
yeah.
They don't feel as scary to you now.
No, I mean, we're two separate people, and like I said, I try really hard not to smoke around him. I'm pretty good about that. I don't let other people smoke around him. So
you're doing the best you can do.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, but it sounds to me too like part of you really does want to quit.
Yeah, I know that I need to, and I keep. Every new year, I say, okay, this year I'm going to quit smoking. But then something happens, and it just doesn't.
It's on your to-do list. It's just not making it to the top.
Yeah.
If you did decide to quit, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is not at all confident, you don't think you could do it, and 10 is you feel pretty certain that you could, where do you think you fall right now?
Probably like a 5, kind of in the unsure area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you see, this is a nice conversation between these two people, and the physician is using some skills in motivational interviewing. She's using open-ended questions. She's using a lot of reflections. She will make a summary. I didn't let you watch it until the end because you will right now again, and this time until the end. She's using summaries, she's using some of the decision-making and importance skills. She's using some classical, typical motivational interviewing skills. Okay. Now, let's watch this slide again, this clip again. And this time, here's what I would like you to do. First, I would like you to sit comfortably and to turn off your TV or whatever sound-producing device you have around you. This time, I want you to listen only to the patient. Don't pay attention to the doctor. Listen only to the patient. When you hear the change talk or something that you believe resembles a change talk, you will clap. When you hear the sustain talk, something that the person says in favor of not changing, you will snap. If this is a neutral talk, do nothing. Okay? So I will ask our technical person in charge to unmute you. Just please don't talk because there will be a lot of noise. Just clap when you hear the change talk, snap when you hear the sustain talk. And this way we will be doing a kinesthetic learning and practice of selective listening. Okay, are you ready? Let's do it all together. You're my students in my virtual classroom. Let's go ahead.
Mis alumnos en el salón de clases.
So I wrote a prescription for antibiotics for Aiden.
Bueno, escribí una receta para los antibióticos que tienes que tomar.
The Spanish translation is problematic here.
The problem is that the microphones are unmuted, so they will keep on hearing me in Spanish.
Okay. Can we stop translating for a second? Because then they won't be able to hear what she's saying.
Okay, I will just give a message in Spanish to whoever is listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Vamos a dejar de interpretar ahora mismo porque mi voz interfiere con el ejercicio. Solamente será en inglés.
For antibiotics for Aiden. I did want to talk to you though. I'm a little bit concerned looking through his chart at how many infections he's had. And I noticed that you had checked the boxes for infections. I wonder if you can tell me a little more about that.
Well, it's just me and him, and I do smoke. I try really hard to smoke around him. For 10 years ago. Full-time job.
Mute everybody again. Just do it fast now in a quiet environment because we won't be able to hear anything. Let's try again. This time, please mute everybody. Okay.
Infections he's had recently, and I noticed that you had checked the box that someone's smoking in the home, so I was wondering if you could tell me a little more about that.
Well, it's just me and him, and I do smoke. I try really hard not to smoke around him, but I've been smoking for 10 years, except when I was pregnant with him. But it's so stressful being a single mom and having a full-time job, and so it's just, that's why I started smoking again.
You have a lot of things going on, and smoking's kind of a way to relax and de-stress.
Yes, yeah. Some people have a glass of wine, I have a cigarette.
Sure. And it sounds like you're trying not to smoke around him. Why did you make that decision?
I know it's not good for him. I mean, I've read those things about ear infections and asthma and stuff, but other kids have ear infections and their parents don't smoke.
So on the one hand, you're worried about how your smoking might be affecting him, and on the other hand, you're not so sure if it's really the smoking that's causing these problems.
Right, yeah. I mean, he doesn't have asthma. He hasn't had a lot of other problems that his other have, though. And I've thought about quitting before in the past, but I just don't see how it's possible right now.
What made you decide to quit smoking when you were pregnant?
Well, he was inside me, and we were sharing everything, and I knew that he would get some of that, and I just didn't think I could live with myself if something happened to him.
Right now, though, it feels almost too difficult to
try. Yeah, exactly.
How were you successful when you quit before?
I don't know. I think about it now. I don't even know how I did it. I just did it. You know, I just couldn't imagine like him not being born or going into labor early and him having problems and stuff like that, all the stuff that they talk about with women who smoke. So that was just enough to say, okay, you know what, I risk that.
Mm-hmm.
So
the risks were so scary then that you were able to stop, but
yeah.
They don't feel as scary to you now.
No, I mean, we're two separate people, and like I said, I try really hard not to smoke around him. I'm pretty good about that. I don't let other people smoke around him. So
you're doing the best you can do.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but it sounds to me too like part of you really does want to quit.
Yeah, I know that I need to, and I keep every new year I say, okay, this year I'm going to quit smoking, but then something happens and it just doesn't.
It's on your to-do list. It's just not making it to the top.
Yeah.
If you did decide to quit, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is not at all constant, you don't think you could do it, and 10 is you feel pretty certain that you could, where do you think you fall right now?
Like a 5. Kind of in the unsure area. Mm-hmm. Like, I know I've done it before, so I know I can do it, but at the same time, it just seems really hard, and it's not the same situation.
Well, what made you say 5 rather than 2 or 3?
I know all the ways it's bad for me, and I don't want him to grow up thinking that it's okay to smoke. I don't want him to use any kind of, I don't want him to chew or anything like that. So I know I need to, especially before he's old enough to understand what mommy's doing, but I just don't know if I can do it.
Okay. So it sounds like you have a lot of reasons why you'd like to quit. You have been successful quitting in the past, and right now you're just feeling a little bit hesitant about your ability to do it.
Yeah.
Where do you think we should go from here?
I don't know. I'd like some help. I just don't know what kind of help I need.
Sure. Well, if you'd be interested, that's something I can definitely talk to you about. There are a lot of new options that can actually help people be way more successful in their attempt at quitting. There's different medications you can try.
I don't like medicine.
Okay. There's also a lot of support groups and classes that you can take where you have other people to go through it with you, and sometimes just having that support can be a big part of it, especially for people like you where smoking is such a stressor.
That sounds nice, but I'm not sure if I have the time for all that.
Sure. It feels like something that would take up a lot of time and maybe not fit into your life. I wonder if we could talk about some options that might fit into your life.
That would be really nice.
Okay. Well, if you're willing, then we could set up another appointment where you could come in and we could talk more about that.
I would like that. That would be great.
Great.
Thank you.
To see when we practice a little bit of selective listening, and you know what are you listening for, and you do it kinesthetically, how many things we hear that we typically tend to overlook or just didn't pay attention to. This is just an example, and I have hundreds of examples like that. I picked this one simply because we are talking about a practical skill, and Carrie started with enhancement, and Javier continued interviewing. So that's why I picked this skill. But you can do it actually building, helping your students to build multiple other skills in many other areas of behavioral medicine and addiction medicine, addiction psychiatry, and addiction treatment. First, I want to thank you all of you. Please forgive me. I thought that by unmuting everybody, I will hear just clap and snap, but it didn't happen. These are just technicalities and limitations of online, but still, I don't want anyone to be discouraged that now for the foreseeable future, we will need to use an online platform to teach our students. Apparently, it works better than I thought, and with some creativity and some a little bit of thinking and support from other people, and I would certainly make myself available to support any of you should you decide to use some of these strategies. I think it's still doable, and I really want to thank you for your attention and doing all these exercises with me. This is just an example. There are many other things you can do. Thank you all.
All right, thank you.